Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is Brett and welcome to this week's episode of Friday on the Turntable. Make sure you stick with me for next week's episode as well, because I'm going to feature the first review I've done of an album from 2015, and it's a really killer one that I'm excited to share with you guys. Today I'm doing something a little different. It's a trio of mini features slash reviews. Three artists that I've been listening to over the last week that really share nothing in common with one another. Alright, so first up is a band formed in Los Angeles in the early 1980s, and that is Savage Republic. This is their second album, 1985, Ceremonial. If I had to describe the sound of Savage Republic, it has all these various different influences. I mean, there's industrial, there's drone, tribal, some folk elements, Middle Eastern, Indian. It runs the gamut of sound. There's a track on here called Mediterranean on side one. It has dulcimer and mandolin, really nice. Side two for me is where it really shines. The band really shines for me on their instrumental work and the instrumentation that they use. My favorite track on this one is the 9+ minute Year of Exile. Starts off with just some pounding percussion. It accelerates and just keeps getting faster and faster, and then it hits this abrupt change, has like a second movement that ends, and then it has a little third outro movement. Really great, and then it ends with the closer, Land of Delusion. Sorry. There is some vocal work on this as well, which forms the much of the first side. I'm not as much into the vocal stuff, but I should mention that Dionysius is kind of an interesting track because it's almost like a cross between Joy Division and like Syd Barrett on vocals. Really cool. That takes me then to the live album that they put out in support of Ceremonial, and this is Live Trek, which was recorded from 1985 to 86. It's a 2-record set. The gatefold on this one has all the memorabilia that went along with the tour, the postcards, and I actually have one of them here. And Savage Republic, Bruce Leicher ran Independent Project Records and Independent Project Press, which has created a lot of artwork and stuff for various bands. Kimber's band, Kimber Lanning, who owns Stinkweed's Records here, her band Half String, he did their artwork. He also did the reissue of SciComm. I'm wearing the shirt here when it was reissued on XXX, and that's one of the promotional postcards that came out for that tour with their little Savage Republic stamp on the back. And there's a little flyer here. You can't really see it very close, but it's when Savage Republic and SciComm actually played at the Mabuhay Gardens in San Francisco. Siege on this one, it's just intense, chaotic, furious percussion. There's like metal drums, metal sheets being pounded. It's just really intense and really a great track. You got Mobilization, which has a post-punk. It has that feel of like Joy Division, but it's got maybe even Public Image, Limited, and Wire. And then it has the bass player Tom Furman. He starts to just slap and pop on this one, but not in that typical way you're expecting, like Primus or Red Hot Chili Peppers. But it's almost used as a dynamic thing, because when picking isn't enough, the slapping and popping gets out that aggressive sound. And then my favorite track on this one is Year of Exile again, which is the 9+ minute song I talked about earlier, and it closes the live album, and it sounds great on this one too. Alright, so probably 95% of you watching already know who Duran Duran is, but for the 5% that don't, they were formed in England in the late 1970s. They got hugely popular in the 1980s. All their videos were just staples on MTV. And it's not a band that I was really into growing up a whole lot. I knew the singles, of course, but I have their albums, and over recent years I've really grown to appreciate them more, primarily because of the bass playing. John Taylor is such a fantastic musician, and a lot of people have seen them as just kind of disposable pop, but their musicianship is just really top notch, all great players. So this is their first album. This came out in 1981, just self-titled, Duran Duran. This is the UK edition, and the European versions of this one all had an extra track on it that the Western, US and Canada didn't have, which was To the Shore. My three favorite tracks in this one, I think I might even just throw out four on this one. Planet Earth, Girls on Film, Friends of Mine is really excellent, and also Night Boat. Now, the one that really got them popular in the United States was Rio. This is their second album. This came out in 1982. The title track, John Taylor's bass line, probably in the top 100 greatest bass lines of all time. Really exquisite playing. You got Hungry Like the Wolf, which is excellent. Save a Prayer, which is like the album's ballad. Hold Back the Rain, The Chauffeur. Just really good. Formed in 1994 by Jeff Tweedy after the band Uncle Tupelo that he was in dissolved. Wilco, alternative country and sound, but they also have Americana. There's some folk influences, and then at times quite experimental. I have a wheelhouse of a sweet spot for the Wilco that I really like, and that is kind of the years that Jay Bennett was in the band. So that's from their second album, Being There, through Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. After I've kept up with all their releases, but I guess over time I've gradually lost interest in them a bit. So I'm going to start things off with Summer Teeth. This is probably my favorite one. This came out in 1999. And I also want to mention that both of these albums that I'm discussing, they really remind me a lot of the Beatles. I think the sounds that they used and the production, I'm talking of course, of like the Sgt. Pepper's era, White Album Beatles. A Shot in the Arm's my favorite track on this one, and probably my favorite Wilco song. I'm Always in Love, Via Chicago. I'm from Chicago, and that's where Wilco is based out of. So I have a special place for songs about Chicago. Nothing's Ever Gonna Stand in My Way Again is another good one. And Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, which was the subject of the documentary I'm Trying to Break Your Heart, which documents behind-the-scenes footage of them recording the album. It also shows the kind of the demise of, or the separation of the band from Jay Bennett, who I discussed earlier, who was one of the really primary multi-instrumentalists involved in the early Wilco stuff. And it also documents the rejection by the label when they sent the completed album to the label. They rejected it, and so the band bought the rights back and released it on their own, and it became really much loved and perhaps a lot of Wilco fans' favorite album. Heavy Metal Drummer is a great, I'm going to just call it a pop song. Super catchy, great groove. That little drum sample that's in the beginning, excellent. Jesus, Etc. is another good one, and it was recently covered by Bill Fay on his Life is People album. You've heard me discuss Bill Fay in the past. His Life is People was my favorite album of 2012. I should also mention that he has a new album coming out this year on Dead Oceans. I'm super excited about that. And Pot Kettle Black, which has hints of like the Cure's In Between Days. So if you're new to Wilco, I highly recommend you start off with one of these. Alright guys, so thanks for watching. Check out the links below. Check out all three of these bands. As I said, I have a playlist all ready to go for you of songs from each of these releases. So thanks for watching.